We laugh. We cry. We learn. But really, what doesn't kill you makes you better at managing clients and everyone. I'm Morgan Friedman, and this is Client Horror Stories.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Client Horror Stories. Very excited to have Sira Laurel with me tonight. How are you doing, Sira?
I'm doing well. It's good to be here.
Well, we had a very fun intro call recently, and I have my drink in hand, excited to hear your story. Let's jump right into the exciting news.
Let's do it.
So let's take it away. We're all ears.
Well, let's start from the very beginning. When I graduated college, it was with a Spanish degree. And what does one do with that? I didn't know. I had wanted to get a philosophy degree, but my parents were very pragmatic and said, absolutely not. You'll never be employed with that. So I thought, well, I still want to stay in the arts. I still want to stay on the kind of qualitative side of things. Like, well, half the world speaks Spanish. I've been taking Spanish for a little while now. I'll just do that. So yeah, that was my baby brain at the time, making decisions. And I graduated in 2008. So a financial crisis, big time in the United States. Mm-hmm. And wasn't a lot of opportunity, out there. So I went to a temp agency in my hometown, and I got a role at a medical device company. And I started out as a benefits advisor. We sold post-operative equipment. And it was in that environment that I thrived, really.
Great.
Apparently was a great systems thinker, which I absolutely use today in my current line of work. But I was really adept at understanding the friction in the flow and figuring out where our constraints were and solving for them. And I caught the attention of my CFO and manager, and was, starting to make good relationships with the leadership team, which started to gain some enemies in our back office.
Ooh, story's starting to get fun.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought that, because I had ascended and, every institutional ladder before that, right? You achieve by getting good grades, and then people, clap and reward you, and you move on to the next step. I'm like, this is going to be the same. But no, there's politics. No, there's social networks. Oh, there's office betties who think of themselves as in charge, even though they don't have any formal power. And I didn't know what any of those things were. So I'm just going along being like, I'm going to be the best. And everyone's trying to be the best, right? And that was not liked by a lot of folks. So that was my first introduction to
But by the way, you're hitting
politics.
hitting on an important point that I want to emphasize, which is just worth fleshing out, because it's kind of subtle that I think growing up, we're in a system where success or failure is determined by objective standards. Basically, you get good grades on the test or not. And I think what happens to so many people is after college, people who are used to, I know how to get the A on the test, so I thrive in that, think the same applies in corporate America. So they go there with that mentality, and then it's just a total shock when it's like politics, and you're like, oh my God, wait, I thought they're my best friend, but now they're backstabbing me. But I was doing such good work. What happened? And so it's a wake up call that I kind of think everyone needs to have at some point in their life.
Yes. Well, and they're going to get it. So anybody who exits college and goes into any corporate career, no one is teaching anybody in college how to survive corporate politics or how to survive.
That is America. Why this podcast exists.
Yes, exactly. So yes, I'm your warning. Every other episode is, please learn from this, and keep your eyes open, keep your eyes wide, and you can avoid some of these hurts and these pains. So I was in for a rude awakening, I would say, entering into this initial workforce. I was there for 5 years, And while I was ascending in role and responsibility and achieving and being recognized for that, I was simultaneously just being like beaten down by the system around me. And
But by the way, I know
Uh-huh.
we're not yet at the exciting story we're building up to, but can you give us like a small example for the audience of the sort
Yeah.
of way you're beaten down? Because I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a 21-year-old recent graduate listening to this, and like makes sense in theory, but like how do people beat you down when you're doing a good job at your work? So do you have a small example to share of
Yeah,
that?
definitely. So there, again, like I didn't have this terminology until I got into graduate school and I studied organizational psychology, organizational development,
Oh,
and I learned about us them dynamics. I learned about power hierarchies, right, and structures. I learned about social networks and cliques, right? I mean, we experienced that in like middle school, high school, where you'd have this group and that group, but that it was pretty harmless, and you could still just do a good job in class and you'd be rewarded for doing a good job. It didn't matter what your social network was. Well, inside of an organization, it really does because those people can talk poorly to your boss about you and say you
right.
have an attitude, or you start hearing that, oh, you have a resting bitch face, like I did. Like, well, I think I'm just focused is really what's happening here. Like, I'm not being distracted by the gossip. I'm not being distracted by, the water cooler talk. I'm just in the zone, actually creating guidelines and policies and written documentation that's helping all of us do our jobs better. I don't know why we hate this so much, but it was that type of stuff. So these little moments where I'd hear something and go like, wait, what? And I'm obviously changing names, but wait, what does Susie think? Susie literally comes to me every day and asks me questions, and like I help her every day. She's talking smack about me. She's calling me an opportunist. What does RBF
But
stand for? So I'm just like learning all these things about all these people who are just like playing nice to my face and then complaining about me, and for whatever reason, I don't know, jealousy, insecurity, who knows?
I grew up a Latin Greek classics nerd, and this reminds me of a line of Seneca's. I once read in one of
Mm,
his letters. He said, "The first art that those who aspire to power need to learn is how to bear hatred."
yes, that is exactly what I was doing without knowing it. It's
You
like,
learn the art of how to bear hatred.
yes, yes, exactly. And there are leaders who have earned that hate, and I had not. Right? Like I was helping, not hindering. I was being inclusive. I was being a representative for
The
the
part of the subtle power of Seneca's line is the first art that those who aspire to power need to learn is how to bear hatred. Is it doesn't matter whether you're like one power for good or for bad.
yeah.
Like there are people that are gonna hate you no matter
No matter
what.
what. No matter what. Yes. So this was I was very confused by this. Right. I did not have that Seneca line at this time. I did not have the education of the Stoics, at that time.
By the way, I'll
Uh,
point out I did, but like you kind of learn in theory, but you still need to go through all that
yeah.
in real life to like internalize it and
Yeah.
really realize it.
Totally. Yes. So absolutely was my trial by fire. Power dynamics, social networks, how dysfunctional a human system can be, an organizational system can be, how the system can simultaneously like reward the same behavior that some see as positive. Like there's a duality inside of the same space. Right? Where like some can see it and go like, yes, absolutely, like keep going, and then others see it and absolutely hate you and want to take you down for it. So that's what I mean by like as I was going up, I was being torn down. And it was so painful. I am a highly sensitive person. I can sense the subtlety in emotion, in social dynamics, right? Like I walk into a room and I can feel the change, like just the micro expression on someone's face that changes, or their body language, the tone and what they say. And it was driving me crazy. But I kept trying to, just remember that I'm being rewarded for this, right? My executives, my leadership team, they see me as doing a good thing, as helping the organization. I'm gonna believe them, right? Like, and I'm gonna be friends with them. I'm gonna do my best with this group, and like you said, some people
So
aren't
of course
gonna
Susie
like it.
is like,
Yes.
she's a ladder climber.
Yes. No, exactly. Opportunist. I had a girlfriend, again, I'll call her Chris. So Chris, and I really gelled and we really jibed. And she was the one who was telling me with all this stuff that was being said, in the after hours or the lunch breaks or, again, like the walks on water cooler moments. And she had told me, she's like, yeah, Susie said you're an opportunist. And I let her know, like, what is wrong with being an opportunist? She's trying to better herself. She's like, sounds like a leader to me, like, what is wrong? So I was really, really grateful to have somebody in my peer group who could see me for me and wasn't, just trying to tear me down. But there was weird dynamic where the group, like the billing side, so the kind of back office, right side of the house, wanted to just hate the salespeople, wanted to hate executives, and created this us-them dynamic that like didn't need to exist, and that I didn't see as necessary, and I certainly didn't want to participate in, because I saw it as like this just self-sabotage happening there. It's like, why would I want to just stay put and stagnate and just be one thing? I want to continue to grow.
Like, I'm so excited to get your story. Before we get into the story, I want to make one final observation, because I find this general topic of these like office politics, like stepping back from it, it's so interesting. Just want to observe part of the pain of office politics, in addition to obvious, it stops productivity, it like wears you down. So yes. But in addition to all that, it's so often because of like the silliest and stupidest reasons. No, this person, like, he once said something not nice enough to me, so like now for the next 8 years in this job, like, no, he's the bad guy. It's like minor grudges just escalate, and it's incredible.
Yes, exactly. Because I didn't show up with, type of expectation that person had for, I don't know, a younger person, a female, who knows what, right? But had an expectation of how somebody in my showing up right to this organization should be and behave. And I didn't meet that expectation. And so it was internalized, personalized, and without thinking about like what someone's actual intent is.
Right. And it's not that you didn't meet the expectation, it's that you didn't meet the unspoken secret expectation that you had no way to know.
Exactly. Yes.
And therefore you're screwed forevermore, because you didn't live up to the secret expectation.
Yes, exactly. Invisible rules that nobody told me I was playing or needed to play, to survive, right? So that was the introduction, right? So that's my first couple of years getting in the mix of corporate world and learning what the dynamics were just on your own, right? Nobody's teaching you these things. They're helping you out. And I'm forming relationships with my external team, the sales folks, and my internal leadership team. Man, we cycled through managers though. I mean, like once a year. It was ridiculous. And ultimately ended up managing the practice. I was promoted into an assistant manager position, but then that manager ended up burning out, couldn't bridge the two groups. And I was promoted to the management position. So all of a sudden I was managing people who I had learned from in like my first year there, who were so like Susie was still there. And now I'm her boss.
Sounds like a true opportunist to me.
Yeah. So let's see now what's happening. I'm working hard. I'm playing hard. We have moved into a new office. We've built a bar inside the boardroom. We have company cars, and it's an exciting time for me to be working in this organization. I've done my best to quiet, the noise of remaining staff, because we cycled through some folks, and not everybody who was in the air at the beginning was still there, but we had some folks who were like lifers, and so people who I was initially learning from were now reporting to me, and I was trying to make that as fair and equitable, and being as responsible as I could and not emotional as I could about that. Again, just having to teach myself like how to lead with leaders who basically just said, ignore it. Or like, don't worry about it. Like that was my leadership advice from people who'd been there before. It's like, whatever. I couldn't, then ultimately I ended up going into HR because I could not ignore the people side of things and emotions, but we'll get there. Yeah, we're living it up. We're going out. We're having a great time. And as I ascend in role and responsibility, I'm also getting, behind the curtain more and more, right, of my leadership group. And I start learning that it's not just a work hard, play hard environment. It's really a Mad Men environment. And people are having affairs. They're going on jets to Las Vegas, like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas type of stuff. And I'm just like, okay, now I'm trying to ignore that. Now I'm just trying to still stay focused on like building this business, making sure we're solvent and managing the revenue cycle, keeping the team educated, and everybody's in their role, playing their parts, and we are having good build months, and I'm trying to ignore all that junk, and I'm getting closer to my CFO, and he's been a really great mentor to me this entire time, and it's been a safe space, and we've been able to develop a relationship where we've even been able to challenge each other in areas of needed growth. Like that kind of relationship where the power dynamic, yes, it exists, and and there's respect for that. And so if there's going to be a deciding factor, like I'm going to provide my evidence and the support for like how I think she should be, but I'm also going to he's going to be the tiebreaker, right? Like it's I know that in that relationship, but he respected everything that I'd done and worked at, and how I'd just excelled and built my knowledge, skills, and abilities in this environment to be an excellent contributor, team player, leader, etc. So it was just a incredible partnership, really. I viewed it, and it's kind of the likes of which I have yet to recreate in. I wasn't able to truly recreate that in any of my internal roles thereafter.
I just want to add a footnote to that, which is I think one of the most underrated aspects of successful career in the corporate ladder is having a good mentor. Like I've known too many people who are like naturally talented, smart, great, hardworking person, but they had the bad luck of having a bad boss in their first job, then their second job, then their third job, and by the time they're like 33 years old, like they're burnt out, even though they had potential. While on the other hand, I've known people that just had the luck of having a great mentor that can like hold their hand, guide them, and have gone on to do incredible things.
Yes. Yeah. Having that made it possible for me to know what good management and mentorship should look like.
Yeah.
So that even if it didn't show up, I still knew that like, okay, that's not it. And to boundary myself better, to work within, find the flexibility and the framework that was offered to me. But I always knew what I was looking for. Even if I didn't get it, I could get as close as I could, right? And with whatever manager relationship I had, and to also find just others, whoever they were in the organization that I could kind of pair up with, who presented themselves in that kind of way where we could have that type of partnership, be thought partners together, find executive sponsors, even if they weren't my direct manager. So, and certainly offer that as I became a people manager to my direct reports, right? I knew it as I was looking for, and I knew what to be.
Yes.
And so I've had great then relationships with folks that I've managed who I've stayed connected with over the years, even though we're no longer working for the same company. And I feel really proud of what I've been able to learn and then, adapt, adopt, and offer.
By the way, I really like your point, or the way you said it a moment ago, that you learn from him like what great management looks like. I might steal that phrase. That because for people who never learn what it looks like if they've only had a boss or whatever screams at them or micromanages them, then like that's just how the world works. Kind of
Yeah.
like when you're a kid, when you're 13 years old, the way your parents are, you just think that's like the normal world. And there is this early career parallel to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. The leadership direct report relationship is akin to the parent-child relationship. It absolutely is. And it's the responsibility of leaders after you exit your family system to offer the ideal, right?
Yes.
Organizational system.
100%. I agree. So you had this great mentor in the CFO.
Yes. So he was the ground for me.
Okay.
While all this weirdness was happening around me, RBF, opportunist, nice to my face, mean behind my back, mean girl, weird stuff. Okay, now I'm again behind the curtain of the leadership team. We're going to Vegas. We're having a Ferris. We're like doing weird stuff. We're even doing a little gray area stuff with like billing that I have to stop us from doing. Like, no, president, we're not going to do that. We're not going to bill that way. I'm not going to tack on this billing code to this product. Like, do we even know the patient got it? Right? Like, just all the stuff that I'm combating. And I'm my through line, right? Like the ground is this mentor for me until I'm told by a salesperson who three of us used to go out together all the time. There's this weight in the office as I get in. Like there's something odd that I can feel again. Like I notice when there's a shift.
In general, or you mean like one particular day you walked in?
One particular day I walk in and there's
an
change.
energy shift.
An energy shift.
Okay.
And I knew that he had gone out and I hadn't, and that he and the salesperson were out at this restaurant bar that we used to go to all the time. And I remember like taking off, and then the next day I just like something has changed. And the salesperson walked in and I'm like, hey, what's up?
But I just want to make another footnote comment. I'm like a logic math sort of guy, but like, even though I'm like a by the numbers, non-spiritual guy, energy shifts are real. Like you can totally feel it, even though if like everything is technically the same and everything looks the same, everyone has the same smile, like you can feel it in some way. I don't quite understand how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So we frequented this place. There was a waitress there who we always used to joke around with. And then one day my CFO wasn't in the office. And I was like, one, that's odd. Like always worked. He and I were always there, like early and late out. And the salesperson comes through and I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, what's happened? I know something has happened. Like what has happened? And she's like, oh, and she's like, you got to tell me. And he's like, yeah. So, so-and-so from this place, wife found out that they had an affair. They slept together.
The CFO.
Yeah.
The CFO. Oh, I see. So the mentor who you had like held up on a pedestal.
Yeah. Who was tethering me. Tethering me to the ground in this Mad Men environment where I had remained safe, like from all of this in my own way. I was still like working hard, playing hard, but I felt like I was in this container with him, and that we were just business oriented, and like, we would, go out late, but we were talking about work and philosophizing and like figuring things out and architecting the universe together. And again, like we were challenging each other and we'd spar and it was beautiful and we were growing. And I was like, okay, at least there's this person. There's this one person here who is centered, is grounded, is not getting caught up in this stupid stuff, like this world crumbling, stuff. And then everything changed. Everything changed. It's like the rose-colored glasses came off. It's if I could see everything for what it was. And he and I had a serious conversation about it, and he knew.
So you had a serious conversation with him about it,
Yeah.
Did you initiate the conversation or did he initiate the conversation?
I went into his office the next day when he came back, and I just shut the door and I was like, hello.
So, but by the way, I just want to commend you for that. This is a lesson I often share and teach, which is I think a lot of people in the sort of the boss report relationship think, no, I'm the report. I have to wait for the boss to like start the hard conversation. But like the good employees, the good reports go to the boss and initiate the hard conversations like you did. So like that's a sign that you're a good employee.
Thank you. Yes. I really didn't learn that there was a repercussion for starting a hard conversation until my next place of employment. So I thought that was just what you could do, that we were all humans. We all had roles to play, but I didn't realize that there could be repercussions for, starting a hard conversation with a superior until later. Cause that wasn't the environment I was in.
That wasn't right.
And I think I actually came out of the womb thinking that I was already an adult and in control and like comfortable talking with anybody and everybody, and that I just didn't get, or I guess I didn't respond to power dynamics, in that kind of way. Wasn't willing to submit, perhaps. Another story for another day.
So tell us about the conversation.
Yes. So his whole body was just, I saw a weaker man. I saw someone who, definitely felt guilt and shame and knew and said as much, that he knew that if I found out, it would change our relationship. That he knew that it would come off as like a betrayal to me. And he apologized to me. And it did. Like, even though I very much appreciated that, there was no going back. I tried, and we continued working together for another couple of years. And I thought I compartmentalized it. I think I did a pretty good job of doing that, and just continued focusing on the business.
By the way, my literary nerd side remembers this, when you say it, sort of reminds me of Shakespeare's 94th sonnet. Since I first read it, like in high school, it's actually my favorite sonnet, and the last two lines are the sweetest things turn sour by their deeds. Lilies that fester smell far worse than weeds. And like lilies that fester smell far worse than weeds. It's a very powerful line. In other words, if something is bad, it's bad. But what's even worse than something bad is something that was previously great, but then became bad.
Goes bad.
Mm-hmm. Then goes bad because you've seen how beautiful the lily is. You've seen how great it could be, as opposed to like weeds. Yeah, your expectation from the first instant is, it's just a weed. So you just ignore it. You don't expect the weed to be the lily. So that makes this sort of like falling situation in many ways much harder than like a boss who is just terrible from day one. Boss who's terrible from day one, it's like, that's just how he is. And you either deal with it or you quit.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. So that thing happens. Okay. It is what it is. It's a one-time thing. That's his relationship, his wife. Like, it is weird. This is just, people make mistakes. I'm like going through all this. I'm going through my own grief process, right? Like with this, and we move on. I move on, and back to work we go. And then the manager leaves, and we bring in the COO, who was like a 1% owner of this corporation and was a total meathead. So, just when I think like this is done and that's passed, I'm like, okay, great. We can just move on and we can just keep going. They bring in this meathead who like lightly sexually harasses me and other people in the office. And what I mean by that is like, we'll come up and rub your shoulders. If you're standing
He would
up
come up
in
to
a
you
doorway.
randomly and rub your shoulders.
Yeah. Yep. So you're in a doorway and be like, what's up? How's it going? And just it'd be like brief, but there'd be a shoulder rub. You're like, thanks. I'll also rename him Joe. Like
Joe.
Yeah.
Joe only shoulder rub the girls, not the guys.
Yeah. I was trying to think like, did you do this to the salespeople? And I'm like, pretty sure I didn't.
This lead salesman who was a former frat boy surely would have punched him.
And we all used to joke about it, because again, this is my first introduction to corporate America. I don't really know what sexual harassment is and like what isn't. Like there's some pretty obvious, signs of like what is like what you think of sexual harassment. It's the really egregious stuff, not the just shoulder rub. Like, hey, I'm just a nice guy. Like come on, I'm just Joe, the happy guy that comes and gives shoulder rubs. I'm just being nice. I'm just being Joe. That's just Joe, right? That's just whomever. And we talk about it as we were on the phone. I was always on the phone like with the salesperson about their patient and the billing and whatever, right? So we're talking like, oh yeah, just such a weirdo. It's just like so lame, and it's just such an idiot, and yada yada. And so there was just this normalization, right, that was happening here. And I'm not HR at this time. Like my mind is like managing the revenue cycle, but I'm also like going like, this is kind of weird. And why isn't, our supposedly HR person like doing anything about this? Like, but he's also the boss now, COO, 1% owner, now managing us. There's like, again, so there's all this power dynamic, weird stuff happening. You're like, what is really possible? Like what is happening for me to say something about this? And then there'd be something else like we had to sit down at a desk. I'm in my office, and he'd come and he'd sit down next to you, and his hand would be put on the tabletop. And so just like the fingertips would like touch just the top of your like leg, as it's under the table. So sitting down, tabletop, and then sit there and just like barely gracing your leg as he's looking at a spreadsheet, getting into the numbers with you. Like, this person definitely doesn't need to be this close. So it started like increasing where you like started to notice like, this is definitely not okay. Right. The shoulder rub was like, okay, maybe he's rubbing everybody's shoulders, or like, oh, there's the, joke that he made about all the girls he used to get in high school. Okay. That's just like, I'm in a room with all the boys, just as boys talk. Like I'm in the locker room. Like, what do I expect? But to hear locker room talk. Okay. Well, now we're sitting down in my office. He's in my space. And his like hand is gracing my leg. Like, okay, we are progressing, right, in terms of behavior. And
by the way, I want to make a quick comment on the progression. Something that I've seen a lot is I've known too many people who are such good people. So here's a problem. Good people, in my experience, think everyone else is good. So because of that, I've known so many good people who, when these exact sort of things happen, it's always no, he was just like holding his hand. No, there's like a millimeter difference between his hand and your foot. No, it didn't really touch. That everything has this sort of like plausible deniability to everything. And then which by the way, this guy does it on purpose, so there's plausible deniability. So then the good people that are around you are like just saying no, plausible deniability, like nothing bad didn't happen. Like I've been in cases, in situations where people are stealing so much money, and like I've just known like too many good people to be where they just buy the bullshit excuse for everything. Like if they don't see someone like taking cash out of a safe of the bank and then walking out while shooting, they're just not going to believe that that some people just do bad things.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I literally shifted my career into human resources and employee relations and just the people side of organizations because of this experience, because there was nobody there who was an advocate. We weren't getting training. We were all doing the best like we knew how. In my first career role out of college, where we also weren't taught really anything about this. So like, is a look okay? Is like looking down at your shirt and then looking up, like, is that okay? Does it have to happen so many times before it's not okay? Like you said, is it the millimeter of difference? Like, how close does it have to be to your thigh before it's a problem? Like, how close does the face have to be? How many jokes have to be told before it's a problem? So yeah, there were all sorts of just new things I just had no idea, right? Were necessarily problems until like my body was telling me there were problems because I was getting sick, because I was losing sleep, because I could feel it more, but the logic part was still like overriding that sensory experience. And it didn't seem to be like anybody else's experience either, right? It was just like, he's a weirdo, but we were in a male dominated industry. So there was just like what a guy thinks about another guy is like that they're just kind of weird, they're not getting sexually harassed. So yeah, let's see. So that's happening. My mental health is crashing. I'm still going to work every day. I'm still showing up, morning, noon, or night work. Still, we're going out. And my CFO and I had like made it to this point where we're doing okay, but I'm telling him about Joe. And he's just like, he's gross. But again, there's like,
okay, so you're telling the CFO where at this point things are improving. You're recovering from the discovery, and you tell him about Joe.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we're, time has passed. We're back in a groove. Things, it is different, but we're back in a groove. And yeah, the COO was brought in to manage the office, and just one is terrible at his job, but is also a predator. And figuring this out as I'm moving along, and my mental health, like physical health, is starting to tank. The problem with the office Betties, as I used to call them, are like long gone, and in terms of like problems, right?
Okay.
We're much bigger problems now, right? In which I'm not realizing that I'm heading towards burnout because I've never experienced that before. Again, nobody tells you these things, and what that feels like.
How old are you at this point?
So let's see. I graduated at 20, so 26.
Okay. Burnout. Yeah. You're a fast learner.
Yeah.
I found burnout tends to happen with more commonly in the mid-30s, but you're good at pattern matching. You're already seeing the patterns, and it's difficult.
Yeah. So I recognize these things are happening. I don't know that it's burnout, but I do know that I'm exhausted, right? I'm tanking. I'm headed in a bad way. And I'm still going out. I am still working hard, playing hard. And I'm doing the same coping mechanism, that I was using to handle the gossip, to handle the, weird things that people were saying about me to get over that, right? I was still going out.
Yes.
And
yes.
I went out with my CFO, and we were drinking hard, and we'd gone to dinner. Yeah, we worked at the office, always had whiskey in the drawer. So we drank there. Then we go to dinner, drank there. And he was really, really drunk. And he just started saying things to me like about how pretty I was and attractive I was.
Ooh,
and I was like, what is happening? So like the thread, that I had attached to the ground, it's like that's how thin it is at this point, right? Like I'm just starting to feel like really floaty in space and like I don't know who I am or what is going on anymore. And yeah, I'm right. Like we're building a business, we're succeeding, we're billing more than we ever have. We've got a larger team. Like it's amazing how, again, like how you can succeed and fail at the same time. So this, yeah, I'm being like hit on by my CFO. And ultimately he puts a hand on me and I'm just like,
with this time with less than a millimeter of space.
indeed. And it's like, what are you doing? And I've been talking with women and hearing other women's stories and there's a slowing down of time while these things are happening.
That's interesting. I've never identified as a woman, so I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
There's a slowing down of time.
Yeah, that I experienced, and I have talked to just so many women who say the same thing, where there's a slowing down of time and a feeling of being frozen. And that's partly, a fight, flight, freeze response, that's getting triggered. But when it's for me, I like my survival mechanism has always been fight. But that's with like, like strangers, with like people I don't know maybe that well, or like friends. Just like there was when you get into a trusting relationship, for me that went away and I froze. Like that was my response instead, which was very interesting. And again, like it was slowing down, like every movement, everything he was saying. And I was going in my head of like, how is this happening? I can't believe. And I started to just separate like from myself, like my body and my mind felt like they were
By the way,
separating.
You prefaced this part of the story with saying you were drinking heavily.
Yes.
How sober were you at this time? Like separating yourself from it, time slowing down.
I mean, yeah, like it didn't, I felt completely coherent and sharp.
Sure.
Yeah. And I was not drinking as much as he was, but we were.
I see. So it's a sort of like you're drunk, but like you get it was the equivalent of like splash of cold water that like wakes you up, and
exactly.
You're like, what the F is happening?
Yes. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So, but that is obviously it's a depressant. It slows you down. Your reactions, right, on alcohol. So, like, while I feel sharp, like, am I sharp? Like, no. It's just I narrowed in. Like, all senses were just like tuned into this experience and how insane it was, and how the disappointment, this like all the stuff that was happening with the CO, like my entire experience in this like years was just all then like just coming up to, right? Like everything I'd smushed down. I mean, like, that's fine. Keep moving on. It was like all coming out here inside as this is happening. And yeah, so I feel like as I could have stepped away and like not let the hand go to my leg, instead of like I could have stopped it earlier. But at the same time, it's like watching a train wreck, like your own train wreck. Like
your own train wreck.
Your own train wreck. It's like I couldn't keep my eyes off of what was going to happen. Like what was going to happen next. It was such an out of body experience. Wow. Completely out of body experience. And yeah, so that just broke me. Wow. That completely broke me.
Well, but like just to finish out that night, to put a hand on your leg and then and slow down, but like feel free to go on to say to not reveal it. I don't want to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
well, it anything additional was put to a stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, we put it to a stop, but he couldn't drive. either. And
He
this is like
couldn't
this.
okay.
This is me at
That
the time going like, what do I do about this person? Like I'm thinking at the same time, I'm thinking like, this is horrific. I'm also, because it's my friend, I'm thinking this is my friend. This is somebody I trust. This is somebody who, like, despite doing this, I feel responsible for, and like I should drive him home. And that's what happened. Which is also just this like insane thing happening inside your head of like, this person is a horrible person, but they're also my friend, and I've known them for so. I just, your brain is just going haywire. My brain was going all over the place.
wow.
Yeah, so that felt gross too. Like I should have just, not should have, because I'm definitely not shaming myself, but that's the thoughts, going through your head at the time. It's like, I could have left him there, should have left him there. Like, what was I thinking? All that stuff absolutely happened. But yeah, because nothing happened, he just went back to work as if nothing happened.
Right. So tell us about the next day in the office.
Yeah. So we just go to work, like, because this is a weekday, and we had to go to work, and that's what we did. No matter how hard we played, we still showed up to work. So yeah, I go to work. It's not like I didn't call in sick. He didn't call in sick. We're going to the office. We're working together. We didn't, hobnob or chat like, normal, but
Did you start the hard conversation with him like you did with the previous incident?
no, I was broken. I was so like emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually broken. My community, even, I would say, right, in terms of like the tribe, like that was shattered, completely shattered. And so like everything having to do with my well-being was gone. And no, I didn't have the strength to have that conversation. I worked for a few more weeks, and COO was still being a weirdo. That is my unofficial, term for being a predator.
Yes.
Continue to sexual harass, right? I have my casual conversation hat on, not my director of HR hat.
Yes.
Right. And it was summertime then, starting to get nice. And I've had a girlfriend who, she had worked there for a short time. That's how we met. And then she got a different role elsewhere, and we became really good friends. And we were sitting on her front lawn. We had a couple of chairs and like glasses of wine. And I was telling her everything that was happening and that I couldn't be there anymore. And she was just really deeply listening and being a great friend, and like, what are you going to do? And like while all of this crap is happening, like, again, like the success is there. I'd been sent on a business trip. I had been introduced to like the world of consulting and was really interested in organizational development, right? This terminology that I was starting to learn about as I was like Googling things. And figuring out what I wanted to do, like in my career, and how I wanted to ascend, like continue to ascend in this company, and what I would need to learn to do that.
You're revealing your age. If you a younger version of yourself would have said, "Oh, I started chat GPTing."
Yeah.
All these new words.
Totally. Yes, exactly. No, I took to Google the tool we had at the time. Yep. And yeah, it was like, what do you have to what do you have to do to be a consultant? What education does that require? Like, what do I have to go to grad school? Like, what is the program? Do I do an MBA? And I found this organizational psychology, organizational development, organizational behavior. And I was like, that is it. That is the thing. It's the qualitative side of business that I want to focus on. I want to be the confidential resource I never had. I want to create the employee experience I would have always wanted. That's what I need to do. And I then also was looking up, like, what do I do about like sexual harassment? Like, I was just researching all these things. And I told my girlfriend then, so back to, the front lawn, summertime, and we're hanging out, and she's like, what are you going to do? It's like, I'm going to go to the CEO. I'm going to tell him everything that's happened, because I have an incredible amount of detail in this long timetable of things that have happened to me and at this firm, names, dates, times, etc., that I will convey the seriousness of the situation, and I will get a severance, and I will leave, and it will fund my way to San Francisco, where I will enroll in this grad program, and I will start a new life, and I will pivot into HR. She was just like, fuck yeah. Go do that. That's what I did.
And that plan worked. It played out.
Yeah, did.
That is a problem-solving mentality at its best. And you're able to do the best version of the consultant, which is look at yourself and say, as an outsider, what would I advise to do? And leave, but not just leave in the smart way, so you can get some money and you can invest that money in what you actually wanted to do. So congrats on turning the lemons into lemonade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the next 10 years, I spent protecting people from bad actors.
But people like the CFO type.
Yeah.
MCOO type.
Yeah, protecting people from CEOs, protecting people from peers, protecting people from whoever. Yeah, just creating systems that were equitable and in service of humans, and that set really clear guardrails. I think humans are better with them. Set really clear expectations for what behavior was expected and rewarded, and held people accountable to that.
Question: if you had the magical ability to whisper in the ear of the version of you that first started seeing the early signs, if we go back a half hour in the story, what advice would you have given yourself?
This is not about you.
Interesting.
This is not like because of you. This is not your fault.
That's interesting and powerful. That I can see that I can imagine that when these sorts of things can happen, there's this natural tendency, especially among good people, to blame themselves. That I brought it on myself, and it just requires maturity and experience to realize most of the time you did nothing wrong. There are just bad people there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not because I went out after work that it is my fault that this happened. It's not because I, put myself in that boardroom. It's not because I, got onto this leadership team. It's I'm allowed to be there. Right? Like I was the only woman there, and like these things can happen when there is no behavioral standard for how you treat people. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't like show up. I've had women even who I had a girlfriend who was sexually harassed at a company, like her dream company. And I had another girlfriend who asked, well, what was she doing there at the happy hour? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, she was going out with her team. That's what she was doing. This is her first month of employment. She's obviously going to go out and hang out with the happy hour. She's showing face. She's being a team player. She's building relationships. Yeah, well, people get drunk and they do dumb things. Like, what? No. That is a failure of leadership. That is not a failure of this human who was victimized at this event.
By the way, I think there's an interesting and subtle point here, which is because no human acts 100% perfectly. It's just impossible. So what I found is in every situation, because no one acts 100% perfectly in every situation, outside observers wanting to be fair tend to want to find fault on both sides. Well, you did this, but he did that, because that's how people on the outside feel fair and feel non-judgmental. And this gets complex because while that's often true, there's this key subtle point that, okay, even if both sides fucked up, it's 99.9999999% on this side and 0.0000001% on this side. So it's literally like 100,000 times more severe this person's mistake than this person's mistake. Said differently, I think it's hard for humans to understand proportionality, and especially proportionality in blame, and where it's like, this person insults and starts a fist fight and hits, and there's all this, and then the other person says, no, well, you didn't, you gave me this angry look. And I'm like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have given you an angry look, but the other person is just so much objectively worse that and for the outside observers, well, you did this and he did this, and it's just, being a human is complex and hard.
It certainly is. And when we're talking about sexual harassment, and you're talking about a woman not being able to show up to a team happy hour because there's a man there who doesn't know that it's not okay to touch you, that is not a proportion case.
And no, and on top of that, that the management team knows that and looks the other way.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Or in my case, like that I'm not allowed to go to dinners with our entire male leadership team because they don't know how to behave. So I have to stay out of that room. That's not me messing up. That's a failure, a societal failure. That's an organizational leadership and behavioral standard failure.
100%. It's interesting. You mentioned in the beginning the show Mad Men, where this sort of behavior is normalized, and there's just this perspective a lot of people have. Yeah, that's how things were back in the 1960s, and the swinging 60s. Everyone was a swinger, and no, and now like the 60s were 60 years ago. No, it's like another lifetime. The 60s were closer to World War II than they are now. And I feel like a lot of people I know don't realize that, hey, that sort of culture is thriving still in the 2020s.
Yes. Yeah. That unfortunately wasn't the last time I was sexually harassed. And I wasn't even in HR then, right? My next 10 years was spent directly in HR, which is even more insane to me. I'm literally making the rules, at the organization about what's okay and not okay. And yeah, it still happens. Very much still a thing. The girlfriend I mentioned, that was just earlier this year.
Just earlier this year?
Yep. Joined a team, massive, very well-known tech organization. Went to a happy hour, team happy hour. Somebody slapped her butt, told somebody on the team, I'm going to fuck that person before the end of the night. And this, it's insane. It's insane. And this is definitely a company that has a lot of governance and structure, and they definitely have sexual harassment training every year for managers. And we've already had the Me Too movement, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, still very much a problem inside of corporate environments. Not all of them. But.
So I slightly off topic from client horror stories, but building on what you just said. These are subjects I know nothing about. What would you, if you were a policymaker, if you're a CEO of some huge important tech company, what would you do to eliminate this sort of problem? Because for example, just again, as a super outsider knowing nothing about this, so this might be naive, like, it's unclear to me if sexual harassment training will actually change anyone's behavior. I just like the people I know who are bad people who have done inappropriate things like this. They would go sit in a sexual harassment training and like roll their eyes and not even pay attention. So to me, that doesn't feel like an effective way to change to
curb
change
behavior.
to curb the behavior. That is the right word. So
Mhm.
what are the sorts of things that you think should be done?
Purpose of an organization has to have a humanist core. It has to be rooted in diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. That's a value system that needs to be ingrained top, bottom, side to side. And you can instill those values into the governance of your organization. You can create reward and recognition systems that reinforce the behavior you want to see. The coherence, right? Making sure that that is sticky and people understand that is, part of your kind of internal comm strategy. The manager training, right, that you offer, again, like top, bottom, side to side, the education that you're providing to your people it needs to be recurrent. It's not a one-time annual training. Definitely. That is when you aim for the floor of compliance, you hit the floor. Right?
I like that. I like that point.
So the bar needs to be high. And if you're going to hire by your values, which a lot of companies do, they, ask people in an interview process, which one of our values, sticks out to you and why. See that all the time in applications. I've designed it into our applications. You need to fire by your values. And that's where organizations get stuck, is they don't end up walking the talk.
Right. Because if someone behaves badly in these sorts of ways or worse, but they're a high performer, dude. He's a salesman that brought in $20 million last year. You're doing all that you can to make sure you don't fire the salesman that brings in $20 million a year.
Yep. Yes, exactly. Without thinking, and this is where like the systems thinking comes into play, that, if that doesn't come naturally, you can't develop. That we're not thinking about, the first, second, third order effects of the decisions we make. And it is, while it's initially maybe difficult to understand those longer term effects in terms of dollars, right? Keeping the competent jerk, keeping the salesperson who's a predator rots that team and that culture slowly but surely over time, so that people are not giving you your best. They're taking leaves of absence for burnout, for the cognitive dissonance at least. You're not leading by example, and that culture lives and dies at the top.
I agree. Culture lives and dies at the top. And in my experience more broadly, it's impossible to get anything important done without executive buy-in. And if there is an executive team buy-in to firing by your values, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's responsible for most of the corporate rot that we see inside of organizations today, and why we have a massive burnout problem and a mental health problem, and people are disengaged. And if we were in an economy where people could leave, they would. But instead they're quiet quitting, and they're quiet crumbling, and they're disengaging, and they're just giving you mediocre results, and they're not engaging in the change initiatives. Like AI is obviously a massive one for a lot of organizations. They're like, maybe, they're just afraid, and they just don't care, because why would they be loyal to an entity that has shown them no loyalty?
Just thinking out loud, like riffing on this for a second, I wonder how much of this is related to a increasing change from long-term mindset to a short-term mindset. because I could see, because just thinking through, okay, how does this change really happen? And we agree that like the change has to happen from the top. But when I think about that, the problem is most CEOs I know, the very successful ones, are thinking about next quarter and not that much further past 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters from now, like at most. And that short term thinking basically has to leak into like, I just need the profits to stay up this quarter, so I'm not firing the $20 million a year sales guy. While on the other hand, it feels to me that a few decades ago, the thinking was much, much more long term. And long term thinking goes to exactly the points that you're making. Oh, how do I make the company, massively more profitable in 20 years than it is now? Oh, let's have a healthy culture. Let's avoid burnout. Let's avoid this terrible sort of illegal behavior. So to me, there seems to be a parallel, or perhaps a causal factor, or perhaps a correlation to the increasingly short termness of everything that's happening.
Yes. And I mean, those financial gravitational pulls they're heavy. They're huge. They're huge, right? That
So in
private equity, your VCs are like, move fast, break everything to get there. And we're throwing all of this money at you to do that. And we're building for liquidation, not longevity. And there are examples of companies that don't do that. Like Walmart, the reason why that is even named Walmart is because of FedMart, and this organization that actually in its governance had purpose and integrity and coherence and compliance to protect it from just shareholders eating the golden goose, that became it. It paid above market wages, had a cap on margins, and a number of other like stability factors that were encoded into its DNA. And that founder, when the shareholders, like, literally the story is that they shut that guy out of his office. They fired him without telling him because he wasn't doing what they wanted to do. And ultimately it dissolved within like 18 months after that. But then he and I think another employee on the leadership team who was just like completely, turned off is not the right word, disgusted really by that. Like they then went and founded Costco. Right? And Costco has transcended, right, this like mutant capitalism mechanism and framework and model. Right? When African Americans have a walk-in, right, to an organization, to Costco, because of how committed they were to retaining DEI policies despite, right, federal headwinds. That, what more is there to say?
Wow.
Like how incredible you are.
I didn't know about that detail, but that's an incredible fact.
Yeah. And Patagonia is another one that like transcended the nonprofit for-profit space, right? Like, and all the benefit corporations that are out there that have adopted a taxonomy that incorporates, the environment, sustainability, and and governance into it, encoded right into their organizations. Again, they're designing themselves for longevity. They're going to be around for 50 years, 100 years or more, not 5 years, and then getting sold, to the highest bidder just for that CEO to start another company and do the same thing, just churn. And yeah, that short-term thinking is pervasive. It's rewarded, right? Heavily rewarded. And, that the CEO who doesn't care about that, like grew up in an environment that doesn't care about that, right? So that it's being nurtured, that type of thinking. But there are examples, and it's a slower and steadier, but still like consistent, ultimately like stronger, I think, set of examples that we have in these other organizations that will stand the test of time and set examples for younger founders. And the ones who, like me, who I didn't want to be a CEO, I wanted to be in service, right, of a CEO. And so I took my chronic institutional betrayal and like turned it into something different and better that could help. And I see that happening in younger founders who are like working for startups, seeing their founders like compete for funding just to compete for funding, even though, you're like, that's broken, that system's broken. I don't want to do that. This is wrong. I'm going to do it this way. And they're going to, found a company that's built on that kind of intentionality. And they're going to have those gravitational forces, right? It's going to be hard, but like you can do it. We have plenty of examples that show young people today that you can do it differently and succeed. But you do have to think of long-term. You have to think long-term and keep, right, your focus on that mission and that North Star vision.
Powerful words, and those are also perfect words to end our podcast on. We covered a lot of ground, a very powerful, intense story, so many insights, different directions, and different sorts, and brainstorming. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for coming, Sira.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was great.
And everyone who's watched it and made it to the end, thank you for staying around. And we hope that you both enjoyed it and learned as much as we did. And until next time.